It's been a week. And what a week it's been. So I got done another chapter in Stephen Erikson's Forge of Darkness, book one of the Carcanis trilogy. In my deep dive here, we have started part four, which is also called The Forge of Darkness. And this one was a doozy of a chapter. Chapter 16. It's another close to 50-page chapter 49 or so. And this one, which we shouldn't be surprised at the length of the chapters. I mean, otherwise I'd be doing like, 2 or 3 chapters at a time. So it makes sense, right? But this chapter has a lot of revelations in it about some of the larger, more powerful players in the realms, a lot about the Azathani, however you say that, and a lot about what is happening to the Teist. So that's interesting stuff. And I don't know if they're all revelations of the chapter or just taking stuff from previous chapters and clarifying it. That could be the case. Because this is page 6, up to page 640, and so out of an 800-page novel. So a little reminding to the reader might be called for here, even though it's done most likely in a different way than what we've seen before. But I have a feeling there's some revelations in here as well as we go through. And one of the biggest themes of this chapter starts off with Draconis saying, "Belief never feels strange to the believer." And so he's explaining this belief to his son Arathan. Who's grown into quite a character and has really come into his own. And so he and his father are having his father-son chat as they move along on their journey here to get Arathan to go wherever it is he's going. We find out later that he's going to stay with Gothos. That guy and his folly. Yeah. So, very cool, right? And so Arathon mentions to his father that gifts are rarely appreciated. And the one who receives knows only confusion at first, and then hunger for more. And in that hunger there is expectation, and so the gift ceases being a gift and becomes payment. And to give itself becomes a privilege, and to receive it a right. By this all sentiment sours. Wow, that's pretty deep for Arathan there. Of course, Arathan's referring to his own experiences, but you could also apply that to what Draconis is trying to achieve here, the ultimate gift to Mother Dark. And so, it's very thematically on point. So, and as they're talking, they meet up with our good friends Erastus and what's his name? Setchel Ruin, I think his name is, or Setchel Lath. Yeah. Those two Azathani who we know later on in the Book of the Fallen as actual gods. So that they meet up with them. Erastus is giving. It turns out that Draconis was the one who obtained the services of Erastus to produce a special gift for Mother Dark. And the gift is an angular black disc, barely larger than the palm of his hand. It is the Folding of Night. Wow. And he's wondering about this precedent that Draconus is setting, and he calls Draconus too old. That's interesting. Um, he tells him that Erastus is being hunted because, Erastus killed the mate to Hood um, earlier in the book. The ramifications of that are coming full circle in this chapter. He calls this thing a Teron, Teron. I'm not sure what that means, but, anyways, and it comes to find out that it was the taking of the of Karish's, the Jagged Karish, taking of her life that allowed Erastus to make this gift the special thing it was with blood magic and all that stuff. So, his gift to Mother Dark is soaked in the blood of a Jagged. And wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. The ramifications are just stunning, and it's the way it's brought out. I think is just brilliant in this chapter. So we move on to our friends Coria, and Hot. Coria, the hostage of Hot the Jagged, the first ever Teist hostage to a Jagged, and it's been a while since we've seen them, but finally they're on their own journey, of course, and they are going to see another Jagged named Verandus, and they always joke, oh, I thought you were dead, and it's a big joke to them. But anyways, the Jagged human is very funny in these chapters, and quite the contrast to some of the deep, dark, disturbing, sad events that go on in the rest of the book. So it's really, really good. And they, they have their own discussions, and they have Hood in chains because they don't want him to go nuts because his mate has been killed. And the Lord of Hate has a care of him. The Lord of Hate is Gothos. I didn't quite realize that right away until I finally figured it out. But that's who it is. And so they're discussing, these events from their point of view, and that's pretty interesting. There is something here about Erastus is talking about the worship of stone to his partner there, Setrolath. And he's looking at that the buildings. Let's see here. He looks at a heap of broken slate tiles, rummaging through them and setting aside certain ones. He says they claim that the buildings simply grew from the ground. At first they were little more than piles of rock, but still they rose from the earth, and soon new ones found the shape of hovels. Here and there a wall or line, others made circles, and then, as if all these pathetic efforts somehow merged and found each other, houses were born. Well, not just houses as we know, but towers to match those of the Jagat, and others that bore the semblance of wood, as you might imagine a Tice would make, while yet others took on to earth itself, in the Thelakai fashion, or hides like the huts of the dog runners. And I think he's talking about what we eventually come to know as Azath houses, which are we've come to learn through this book that they're kind of incorrectly named because they actually have nothing to do with the Azathane. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe the well of power that these things are created from and drawn from, that they still don't, we still don't know what creates the Azathani, and we don't know what creates the Azath. So maybe it's a similar state of coming into being, but it wasn't that because of the Azathani that they were built. It's because of this power source, whatever that is. I know it gets a little twisted and confusing in the mythology of it all, as mythology should be, right? So anyway, um, yeah, they call the outsiders the Azath, and from this the Tice name us. But we are not all worshippers of stone, are we, Setch? Yeah. So they talk about that stuff. Uh they talk about you know. Oh, they do mention that when people start hunting them in you know in for real, like for with a bit more zeal than what's happening right now. Um, they talk about crossing the sea to this other land, fleeing the lands of the Azathanai and the Jaggats. And he says, "Oh, that where Male went? Remember him? He will not welcome us." And he says, "Oh, I think even beyond his realm, to the High Kingdom, whose borders are closed to the Azathanai." And he says, "Oh, we got a bargain our way in there." So this High Kingdom is mentioned again, and I still don't know what it is specifically. I mean, we all heard about High King Kalor in the Book of the Fallen, but is it the same thing? It doesn't feel that way. I don't know. But that's mentioned. Lands beyond are mentioned. The sea. Male already fled there. He doesn't want anybody around. Very cool stuff. So there's another section that comes up with when Korea awakens from her drunken stupor or her drugged stupor that she was in. She sees this new jagged verandas making dolls, and it's interesting because a lot of these dolls are made of sticks and what have you, and it just reminded me of the uh, the manifestation of puppets in Book of the Fallen with wizards like Hairlock and other ones. So that's interesting, but she also finds out, Coria, that this guy was the one who made the dolls that were given to her by Hot when she was first a hostage. And she did not realize that they could run away on their own. And she realized that she let them all locked up so she's finding out this stuff is pretty fun. Um, I love this discussion here. Verandis is talking about time, and he's considering a thesis on the seduction of oblivion. My arguments will be senseless, as befits the subject. That's hilarious. Jagged humor. It's great. So Draconus has given a taste to sorcery of darkness. So I think Draconus, that's his darkness, is Draconus's godly sphere, so to speak. That's his thing. Is what do they call that? I can't remember anything right now. Anyways, you have the god of water, male, you have the god of darkness, Draconus, right? Yeah. Then we have so many things. They keep calling Korea a Maibi, like we learned about them in Memories of Ice. So what is going to fill her? I don't know yet. Sticks and twine, leather and straw are all but traps for a wandering soul. So that was something Veranda said, which was interesting. Then this creature called Kilmandaros. We all know that name, right, from the Book of the Fallen, and she is the wife of Grizzin Farrell. I think we heard that before. But she gets mad. She's something's making her angry, but then they talk her down and she walks off. It's kind of funny. Uh, and she meets up with Draconus and he talks to her. And he says, "Oh, we met your husband on the trail." And um, oh, this was interesting. They have a conversation here, and he asked her, "Would you make weapons of your followers?" And she says, "What other good are they? Besides, the Forukan do not worship me. They have made illimitable law their god, even as they suffer its ceaseless corruption at their own hands." Like, even back then, we see the culmination of that in the Book of the Fallen. But wow, um, and that was pretty cool. They will manifest their right to all that the dog run his own, and make of this law a zealotry to justify genocide. So there's a little hint of the future. That's pretty cool. And yeah, so Dragoness tells her that her son committed murder of a Jagged, and she's like, and she's saying, "Hey, Dragoness, you were kind of complicit in that." And he's like, "Yeah, not my best day." I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it's pretty cool. Pretty cool, this little face off between those two. And he his son Arathan asked Draconus directly, "Is Mother Darkin Azathanai?" And he says, "No, she is Teist." But that is kind of telling us that the Teist have this ability to take on this power, this access to power that the Azathanai have, that the Jaggeds have access to this power. Yeah, so the Teist have this ability back then to take this on. Something that seems to be a new development in the evolution of the Teist race, and probably something that's going to break them up into what we know as the three different Teist races that are in the Book of the Fallen. But yeah, interesting little mention of Tales by the Lord of Hate here. Not the Lord of Hate. What's his name? Hot. He says Hot dislikes Tales. And so because she's like asking, why do we have to visit the Lord of Hate? And he tells you, because he tells her he doesn't like Tales, because telling her a tale he would have to tell her a tale in order to tell her why. But he says, because tales imply a unity that does not exist. Only rarely does a life have a theme, and even then such themes exist in confusion and uncertainty. A tale is the binding of themes to a past, because no tale can be told as it is happening. So very cool, uh, very cool commentary on the nature of tales. Yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, moving on to this is wow, so much happened in this chapter. That is a myth here of Cruel, how he bled. It is Cruel, right? Yeah. And from the wounds he opened upon himself, in the blood itself, he gave birth to mysterious power, sorcery, magic, and many currents and flavors. They are young still, vague in aspect, and only barely sensed. So there's all the myth making of magic here that's happening during this time. So cool. And yeah, let's see here. Let's see here. In the Tower of Hate we go. Arathan wants to stay with Gothos as a gift to Gothos. We already heard about gifts, right? Interesting. And we hear about Hood, who is talking about a war on silence. He will, if he is able, shatter the peace of death itself. So it's audacious, monstrous. Draconus is furious about, of course, Erastus and sexual lath, and the manner in which they obtained his gift. And he said, "My fury remains, Hood, and I will curse Erastus for his deed, and for my own role in it, I will forge a sword and make of it a prison." Now, that is interesting, because I thought that maybe Anamander's sword, his husk sword, was the one that was going to become the one that's made into a prison. But Dragonus is going to forge that sword, so he's going to quench it in Vitir, by Vitr. And Hood's like, no, 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 you can't do that. No, no. And Hood says, what I will do once I am freed will unwind all of existence. Jeez, these guys, man, the power levels they're talking about. We are never eased for long by the accoutrements of self-delusion. Wow. Wow. So they're just talking about stuff that's huge, big. Let's see here. Oh, then Draconus uses magic to swallow himself in his mount, and the I was called the stallion's black hide deepens, his form blurring at the edges, his eyes flaring suddenly, lit with lurid flames, and they vanish. No words of farewell. Yeah, Arathan's, he's on he's come to his new life with Gothos. He's going to be a scribe. He's going to be a helper. He's going to be someone who a guest of the Lord of Hate. Why is he the Lord of Hate? Interesting. And then finally, Koya and finally meets up with Arathan, which is interesting for the first time at the end of the chapter. And that, how does that relate to the beginning lines? I'm not sure. But all this talk about belief in the beginning, and then all this talk about the myths of magic and the myths of darkness, and what these creatures are eventually going to grow into. We know they're all going to be gods of some sort. Erastus and Sethel, whatever his name was, and Ola Ethel and Draconus and Hood. He's going to be the Lord of Death eventually. He just boasted more about what he could do there. Wow. Yeah. That this chapter was something else. Something else in the lore dropping of Malazan, or this world, Corral Gurlane. Yeah. Can't wait to read on and finish this book eventually. So, all right, we've gone on long enough. That was chapter 16, and really glad I got it through it this week. Keep your, be wary of your beliefs. All right, be good to each other.